Welcome back to Coast. It's Lou and Beau here once again after a bit of an absence. Beau, how are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad at all, Lou. So just to introduce ourselves, I'm a technology specialist based out of Perth, Western Australia. I love all things tech. I know we had a break last month. We had a lot of events and things that we had to go to. There was a lot of travel, but it's good to be back. How about yourself, Lou?
Yeah, pretty good. Bit of a break like you. Got to catch up and took the opportunity to catch COVID as well and experience that like so many others have, and that was fun. But it's good to be back. And actually, interesting point. Beau and I hadn't actually physically met each other the whole time we've been working with each other at Microsoft, and it's been quite a while. And we finally managed at an internal event to physically get together, catch up, have a drink or two or three, and it was just awesome to meet you face to face.
Yeah, I think it made a massive, at least for me, and I'm relatively new to Microsoft as well. So I've not actually had the opportunity to go to one of those in-person events. So night and day for me.
Yeah, fantastic. So if you didn't already know, I'm Lou Mercury. I'm over here on the East Coast in Melbourne. Beau and I are on the same team. We've got a great guest today. Beau, want to tell us who's here with us today?
Yeah. So I guess on this episode of Coast to Coast, me and Lou are going to cover some of the latest Purview news, especially because we've missed out on it for the last month. We'll cover some of the new updates on something that's interested us over the last month or so. But we also have a special guest, Rita Kontoudis. So Rita, do you want to introduce yourself and what you're talking about today?
Thanks so much, Beau. Hi, Lou. Hi, Beau. So thank you so much for having me on Coast to Coast. I am a Dynamics 365 CRM and Power Platform technical specialist at Microsoft. So what I'm going to be talking about today is a little bit about how our Microsoft applications are better together. So how we can go about enhancing some of that security on Dynamics CRM with Microsoft Purview.
You're going to have to tell us all about Dynamics CRM as well and Power Platform and give us a bit of an introduction to that too. And you make a good point because Rita and I have actually worked together a little while ago on a customer engagement where the brief was literally to demonstrate how Microsoft Purview Solutions and Dynamics CRM can actually work together to give the customer a really secure, productive solution. So that sort of sparked my brain to think we need to get Rita on and actually have a speak to the broader audience, if you like.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, like the more that we're getting embedded with customers, the more conversations we're having, the more that integration piece is coming in. Like, how do we collaborate across the different products with a customer? So that's coming up more and more.
Yeah. So before we kick off with you, Rita, just some updates. The one thing that's popped up for me, Beau, is we've got some new compliance manager template updates coming along.
Yes.
Over the next couple of months. There's a couple I've been waiting on. If you're doing anything around IRAP or VPDSS, stay tuned. Give it a couple of months. Talk to me. There's some good stuff coming.
Always. I guess I've got two that I want to cover today. So we've gone the GA for the Microsoft Graph API for Purview e-discovery. So that lets you start scripting some of those common e-discovery actions using the Graph REST APIs. So they include, but they aren't limited to, things like case, custodian, search, review sets, export management. So we're able to start scripting some of those responses within there and automating some of that functionality a bit more. And the other one that people have been asking for a lot is the public preview for configuring a default sensitivity label for a SharePoint library starting the rollout. So people have been requesting this for a while. It's a bit of functionality that people have been begging for. So when SharePoint, yeah, for months. So when SharePoint is enabled for sensitivity labels, we can now configure a default label for a document library. So once any file is added to that library or files currently exist within there and they don't have a label applied, it'll automatically give them that default label. If the inheritance of that label is of a higher classification, so let's say we've given the SharePoint library a highly classified label as a default and the rest of them are in there under public, they'll inherit the higher label as well. So that's currently rolling out in the public preview, but the GA will be scheduled for around September.
That's awesome. I've got a couple of furry guys jumping around here. Hopefully they're not making too much noise, but if they are, let me know and I'll shut the door on them. But I'm really happy to hear that SharePoint update, Beau, because that really rounds off our labeling capability. Because of course, most of you already know that you think about the different opportunities to apply a sensitivity label, There's at the point of creation, so within the Office applications, and Rita will touch on this a bit later as well. There's the sensitivity labeling option, the manual option. There's the service side options as well, where we can look at content within the Office 365 service and then apply labels as required. And now at the document library, just rounding that off, and none of these are mutually exclusive. They can work together, of course. If you've got really good training for your end users and they're on board and you've got confidence they're doing the right thing, fantastic. But if you need to make up for some of those deficiencies out there and some of the maybe more relaxed labeling behaviors, those automatic solutions are fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And it happens all the time. I've got even a couple of projects in flight at the moment where that's a requirement that we need to start building out. So instead of going through trying to script it or doing it that way, we can just start applying those default labels, which makes a big difference.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're taking away from Rita's time. So
yeah, I was about to say, I think that's exactly what we're doing.
Thanks so much. So I'll jump into what I was going to cover today. So again, we're sort of looking at how the broader Microsoft capabilities and how our solutions work together. So in particular, Dynamics CRM. I guess I'll start with what a CRM is. It stands for Customer Relationship Management. I imagine a lot of people are very familiar with CRM, but it really helps businesses build relationships with their customers. So CRMs help you know your customer, personalize the customer experience, and really build customer loyalty and retention. And for that reason, CRMs help businesses grow revenue. So they're very important systems. They store sensitive data. So it's very, very important that we secure that data in CRM. A CRM may store data such as somebody's medical records or their health history. It could have financial data, potentially bank balances, tax file numbers, and it can have important information a business stores about its sales opportunities or its revenue. So, we have got a vast number of security controls within Dynamics itself. And so these are quite robust and extensive. So we have, role-based security access, granular control at the record level and the field level. We've got encryption of that data. But what we know is that a significant proportion of data breaches for CRM occur as a result of employee actions. So this is at times when employees actually genuinely have got access to that data, but either through negligence, so potentially falling victim to a phishing attack, or through malicious actions. So think of perhaps a sales rep who's taken a job at another company, that data can leak. We call that threat insider risk. I'm sure that that's something you talk a lot about, Lou and Beau. Yep. And from what I understand, it's on the rise, and it's certainly something that we talk more and more to our CRM customers about.
Yeah, and with that as well, like we speak about it a lot in terms of both accidental and malicious as well. Like it's really easy for someone that has access to that data to accidentally expose it or exfiltrate it. So we want to make sure we're trying to pick that up.
Yeah, definitely.
A very important point there as well. Sorry, Rita, I just cut you off. But the other important point you made was that within Dynamics CRM, there are some really good controls. Stop laughing at me, Beau. I'm trying. Excuse me. There's some good controls within Dynamics CRM, of course, but I guess I'm trying to get a sense of where the Microsoft Purview solutions come into play. And in my head, and correct me if I'm wrong here, it's when that information leaves CRM or Dynamics CRM, when it's in transit, when it starts to move around, that we need that platform protection, the broader solution, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Lou. And what's so great about the Microsoft solutions is that they work so well together. So, I'm excited. I'm going to have the opportunity to show you Dynamics today, and you'll see how it works with Excel, how it works with Outlook, how it works with Teams. And what we really enable is people to remain in their flow of work and work in their application of choice. But of course, that means that some of this sensitive customer data is moving around. And so I see Purview as a way to really enhance business agility and allow people to stay in that flow of work and work in their tool of choice without compromising on security. So, in my demo, I'll show you potentially how we can, export CRM data into Excel and manipulate that data and interact with that data within Excel. And a lot of our sales reps get very excited about that feature because a lot of people feel very comfortable in Microsoft Excel. It's a tool of choice for many. But how, instead of needing to, use a control that we do have within Dynamics to lock down that export, rather than locking down the ability to export data, we can allow sellers to do that and to, interact with the data in Excel, but we can protect that data wherever it travels. And that's what I'll try and show in my demo, how through sensitivity labels, which I heard both Beau and Lou you mention, we can, make sure that we apply controls to that data and protect it wherever it goes.
Yeah, and I guess just to build out on that, those sensitivity labels, and at least in terms of Purview and how we look at it, kind of the fundamental building blocks on that whole data protection thing. So the more that can spread across those different ecosystems, those different products, those different sets, the more protection that we can put in place in those different layers.
Yep, fantastic. So without further ado, I'll jump into a demo. You sort of ready for me to jump into a demo?
Always
yeah,
ready.
Okay. Okay, great. I love showing Dynamics 365. I get very excited about this. So in this demo, so I'm a sales rep. So I spend a lot of my day in Dynamics 365. I've got access to all of the important information I need, information about my customers, information about my sales opportunities. So I consult my dashboard. But there are times, as I said, where Excel is a tool of choice for me. I'm very proficient in Excel. And rather than, say, drill into a record by record in Dynamics to, edit my data, I may want to interact with my account list using Microsoft Excel. So what I've got in Dynamics is I've got a list here of all of my active accounts. And I can go ahead and export that list to Excel. Again, our Microsoft applications work seamlessly together. So once I've exported that file, I can go ahead and open up my active account list in Excel. So once I've done that, we'll notice here I've got access to all of that information. And I'll point out here that I've got the account name, and I've also got here the ACN, or the Australian company number, against that account. And we'll see when I jump into Purview later that I've actually set up some policies or matching that will look for this ACN and then protect this Excel document, because it can detect that I've got sensitive data here. So we'll see here that a sensitivity label, or a custom one that I created called customer data, has been applied to this CRM data. So we can see that my account data, or my customer data, as it travels from Dynamics to Excel, has got this customer data sensitivity label applied. Rita, and what that means, yes.
Sorry for interrupting, but I think the point around, what is it that's sensitive about this data? What is it that's so important about it is a really important one. I know within Microsoft, obviously we're using Dynamics CRM internally, but we're very protective of customer data. And, as any customer would expect, that the information we gather and have relating to their business is taken very seriously and protected as well. So, in all of this, it's really around, managing all that responsibility that we all have, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And when a customer engages with a business, the customer really places their trust in that business to keep their data secure. And as I said, CRMs can store very sensitive data. So it can have data about, we've got a lot of health companies, or hospitals and private health insurers who use our CRM system. We've got a lot of financial services institutions, government departments, and we can have, key information like tax file numbers, Medicare information about somebody's health, information about their financial position. And so the data really is, it's incredibly important that we keep that secure to maintain trust with our customers. And so here we can see that, we've protected this data, and we've got, if I go and have a look at some of the permissions that I've got against this Excel file, I'm not able to save this. For example, I can rename the file, but I can't save it down anywhere. I can't download a copy to my machine. I can't print this file. So it really is, restricting what I can do and where that data is going to move. And as I said, it really enables me as a salesperson to, have additional capability and allows me to work within Excel, because I can export the data and I can, make changes to this data and save, I could potentially, add another column and make some changes. But I'm not restricted from doing that. So we haven't, as an organisation, blocked this fictitious company hasn't blocked the ability for a sales rep to export that customer data, but has put in place the protections to make sure that it stays secure and isn't, it unintentionally or intentionally leaked and shared where it shouldn't be.
Yeah, and on that as well, we also have the ability with those sensitivity labels to configure DLP policies for this very kind of thing, where we can prevent the accidental sharing of this information as well. So even if they had the ability to share, we can block that with DLP policies as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And I was going to then sort of a good segue into showing how this capability carries over into, Outlook, for example. So if I were to want to go and email somebody this information, and here we're going to touch on another aspect of security called information barriers. But if I were to try and email this to my colleague, Alex, so let's attach that document. We can see here, say this is my customer list. We've got access to sensitivity labels here too. I'm going to send this. But you could see that when on that email, I can also apply a sensitivity label, and depending on how I've set this up in Purview, and in this case, I did set up encryption, so we can encrypt that email and make sure that the contents, for example, are only readable by the intended recipient, and also we can set permissions so that the email can't be forwarded. It could also, and Lou, you taught me about this, we can set a time limit on this as well. So if we wanted to then revoke access as well down the track, we're able to do that. I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit about that, Lou, but I thought that was an incredibly great feature to be able to control that access, in the future as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of those abilities in sensitivity labeling to either have a fixed end date or provide a certain amount of time, say 14 days access, and then after that, access gets revoked, which is a great way of handling sensitive information. It needs to be shared, but then not having to worry about how do I go off and revoke and retrieve all this content that's floating around everywhere.
Yeah, and I guess one of the key use, sorry, Luke, one of the key use cases for that where I've seen that happen are things like tenders. So we've got a tender open for a month. After that, they shouldn't have access to this either way. So let's revoke that access automatically after a month that it's been sent, and they can pull it back that way.
Yeah, good example.
Fantastic. All right, and also I wanted to finally, while I'm still demoing Dynamics, I wanted to also show how this works with Microsoft Teams as well, or the information barriers does. So again, Microsoft applications work so well together. I have actually got Microsoft Teams embedded within Dynamics, which as a sales rep is incredibly powerful, and it really enables me to collaborate both with users of Dynamics, but even more broadly within the business I'm in. So I may want to collaborate with one of my colleagues. But a lot of the companies or customers we deal with, particularly I support the financial services industry here in Melbourne. Some of my financial services customers, they've got key requirements around, different teams within the organisation not being able to share data, or what we call an ethical wall. So what we can set up in with Microsoft or M365 is the ability to digitally enforce some of those barriers. So here I'm going to try and send a message to my contact Alex. So, and what we'll see here is that it's going to fail to send this message to Alex because he's actually been set up on the other side of an ethical wall.
I've got to say, Rita, you know how much I love this capability. The first time I saw this, it just blew me away. And I think Beau and everyone else on my team knows that I'm a crazy user of the Teams chat within CRM.
Yeah.
Beau, now you know where I got that from.
Yeah. Yep. I understand now.
Yeah, and I absolutely love it as well, because it really, it kind of, this integration between the applications, it really makes it makes life a lot easier for our sales users, or for many users. And it really, that easy access though, it requires, security controls on it to make sure that we're not unintentionally leaking information or sharing it where it shouldn't go. So yeah, it's really while it makes these applications really accessible and usable, it's really great to be able to put this digital enforcement in to make sure that, our users aren't unintentionally leaking data where it shouldn't go.
Yeah, and I think Beau's made the point a couple of times as well that, a lot of these controls are really around protecting our employees as well. Because, when I'm in the midst of a deal or I'm sort of working on something and we're all under time pressure, we're going to make mistakes inevitably, and we need those guardrails in there to protect me. And that example you've just given there, I might completely innocently be kicking off a chat with someone who's outside my or I shouldn't be chatting with, and just having that protection for me as an employee is actually a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, Rita, we're cutting each other off. I guess it just removes the whole conflict of interest that happens by accident. Happens all the time, happens in all companies. We've seen it in customers, we've seen it in the news. A lot of the time that's happened by accident. They've shared something by accident. Then we're working on a tender, they're doing something confidential, they've accidentally looped someone else in. If we have these ethical barriers, those ethical walls in place, we've already mitigated the threat before it's actually occurred.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Beau. And so very finally and very quickly, so I will say I'm not a security specialist. I cover our dynamic CRM products, but what I wanted to show you was how easy it is in Microsoft Purview for somebody without, deep skills in security and a deep knowledge of security to be able to set some of this up using point and click tools. So what I was able to do, and this is the first time I've touched Microsoft Purview this week, is I was able to set up a data classification, so a sensitive info type. So to enable that demo I showed you, I was able to create a sensitive info type called customer data. And Purview is set up to look for several different types of sensitive information. In particular, this one I used was the ACN, as you saw in the demo, we saw in Excel, that my file had Australian customer numbers in it. So here I set up this sensitive info type. I was able to configure that to look for an Australian company number if it found it. Once I had set up this data classification, I was then able to create a label. So I created that custom label that you saw called customer data. If I drill into that, you can see that, I was able to say apply encryption and restrict permissions when this, so you can see here, restrict permissions when this label is applied. And I also created an auto labeling policy, which meant that it automatically looks for the ACN within the file. And when it saw that there was an ACN in that document, it automatically applied that customer data label to the file. So, okay, great. That's actually what I wanted to run through in my demo today. So, Lou, I'm going to hand back to you.
You have no idea how happy you've made me just by watching you go through all of that and sort of show off my baby, or our baby, I should say. You did a great job. Thank you for that.
I had a lot of fun. Thank you.
I should note as well that it's good to get the perspective of people that haven't. It's sometimes me and Lou obviously get lost in that lurch where it's our bread and butter. So we do this every single day. It's really easy for us, but to get an outside perspective of someone that doesn't use the portal often and how easy it was to set up, I think that's invaluable for us.
Yeah, and I had a lot of fun doing it. It's really highly accessible and quite powerful what I could create with, just a very limited knowledge that I have.
Fantastic. All right. So with that, I think we're moving on to the toy box section. Rita, this is something a bit new for you, I know, but we'll kick off. And this is literally just talking about things that we're doing outside of work or just anything that is of interest, topical.
We probably should as well just note that we gave Rita about 2 minutes head notice for this. So this is not pre-prepared.
So I'm hoping my video quality is a bit better today. I've been struggling with getting my video working properly with all sorts of hardware issues and lighting and stuff. And, it takes a lot to make this look any good. But so my share for the toy box is an app called Camo, which lets me basically plug my $2,000 bloody iPhone into this system. So rather having to use, webcams or anything else or go off and buy more hardware, it lets me use the phone I've already got. So the portrait mode that you're seeing right now is actually coming through the phone. It's all native in the phone. The only thing I'm doing is pulling a feed, integrates into Teams or anything else you're using. I'm looking at my iPhone sitting right there, and so far so good. And it's probably the best thing I've bought for a little while. That's me.
You are looking good, Lou. I'll give you that. Very rugged.
It's a work in progress. Thanks, bud. How about you, mate?
I guess so. I'm going through a bit of a hardware refresh at the moment. So I've bought a new keyboard. I'll bring it up so you can see it's pretty lit up.
Yeah.
If you can see it up on the camera. It's a Rocat Vulcan 122. So I've got that. I've got my new desktop coming. I'm picking it up literally straight after this. But I know Lou loves the sound of mechanical keyboards. So I thought I'd put it up to the mic and just give it a couple of these. Oh, yeah, he loves it. All day.
Beautiful.
Like he'd listen to it.
ASMR.
Yeah, I thought I'd give you a little bit of ASMR on that one, but it works really well. It's got like no case over the top, so all the dust in that doesn't collect. It's working really well. It's good to type on. So I think I'll keep moving forward. And probably next episode of Coast to Coast, I'll show my new desktop, which will be very LED lit up. And my son is super excited. So I'm in a bit of that phase at the moment.
You're doing the whole water cooling and all that stuff?
I am actually. Yeah, well, I do.
Of course you are. Wow. Okay. Look forward to it.
And I guess with that, we'll kick over to Rita for her impromptu toy box.
Okay, so mine's not really tech related, but I recently bought my first espresso machine. So 2.5 years into working from home, I decided it was finally time to sort of graduate on from the pod machine, the stovetop Bialetti and the plunger to an espresso machine. So I bought I think it's kind of an entry-level Breville Bambino Plus, but with a grinder as well. So I've just been playing around with all the different settings and different beans, and it's actually been quite a lot of fun.
And you've been experiencing crema?
Yes, I have. And I also bought, I did a lot of research and I had a look at, you buy like what they call like a naked bottomless portafilter. So yeah, I think you're nodding in agreement, but I've managed to stop any splatter and get a really clean shot. So yeah, it's been a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah, Bo, I think I know what I'm going to be talking about next month.
I've got a new one that I bought like 2 months ago, so I might show that one too. So it's one of those things.
You're moving off pods. Anyone on pods, you need to get off pods. I don't care how green they are. Just they're unnecessary. Just grind your own bloody coffee. Just you know.
It's one of those holes that you can fall in pretty deep as well. Like you think you know how to make a coffee and you start researching it and then you realize you have no idea what you're actually talking about.
Well, I've actually kicked off a coffee subscription program with a local roaster as well. So every month I get a kilo delivered at my door.
We go through more than a kilo a month, which is unfortunate. So
yeah. Alrighty. So I think with that, we might wrap things up. It's been another great episode, actually, and I think, Rita, you've done a great job. Thank you. I know you were under a bit of time pressure to get stuff together for this one, and you've been really gracious and really very accommodating as well, and you've done a great job. And as a bit of a bonus for me, sorry, Bo, I get to work with Rita as well, just my day-to-day. So I'm looking forward to doing more of that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me today. I've really enjoyed it.
All right, awesome. Well, I guess that will close off there. Next time on Coast to Coast, we're going to be covering the latest news. We're going to have another special guest. We'll amp this one up over LinkedIn and then publish it over the next couple of days, as you guys will all see. So I guess I just want to thank Rita for joining us. Lou, as always, thank you for joining us on the session. And with that, I'll close it out. Thank you.
Time to wave. Bye.